Hello again. I've been emailed by the mother of one of my pupils who asked if I could do a video on road etiquette and general courtesy whilst out on the road. So here it is. Today there are roughly 37.5 million vehicles on Britain's roads, on the roads of the UK, which means that we all have to share that space as it becomes increasingly crowded. And we need to be prepared to potentially give up our priority and actually give way to other vehicles in order to allow traffic to flow smoothly on the road system. Now, the first place we might want to look for any advice on this would be the Highway Code, which is reassuringly vague on the whole situation, to be honest. Rule 144 says that you must not drive dangerously without due care and attention or without reasonable consideration for other road users. Rule 146, adapt your driving to the appropriate type and condition of road that you're on. And Rule 147, be considerate towards all types of road users, especially those requiring extra care. For instance, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, animals, horse riders, older drivers, learners and inexperienced drivers, and these categories are covered in Rules 205 to 217. Now, there are many situations out on the road where you may find that you have to show consideration to other road users, or where possibly you might have to hand over what would be your priority to a different driver in order to allow traffic to flow smoothly. And I'm sure you could probably come up with your own ideas on when these might happen. Today I'm just going to look really at three of these situations. Firstly, probably the most common one, is junctions. Usually when other vehicles are looking to turn right, meeting situations, and another common one is where we have pedestrians crossing the road at junctions, or where they're using islands in the middle of the road. This is not the same as when they're using pedestrian crossings, because there are specific and clear rules on how to deal with pedestrian crossings, but this is where pedestrians are just using open space, as it were, within the road. So we're going to have a little bit of a look at those three in turn. So let's have a look at junctions first of all. The rules state that traffic travelling in the major road would have priority over vehicles emerging out of the minor roads, either on the left or on the right, where those vehicles are having to cross through giveaway lines or through a stop line. Similarly, traffic travelling down the major road would also get priority over any oncoming traffic that is looking to turn across their path into a minor road on the left hand side. But what situations might there be where you as a driver might consider giving up your priority to other vehicles? Well, two main ones come to mind. Firstly, if you are travelling down the major road and you happen to notice up ahead that there is a vehicle emerging from a minor road, a side road on the right hand side, and you might start to think about whether you should allow them out and to continue their journey. Second one is, again, possibly you're driving down the major road and you notice ahead of you there is an oncoming car waiting. He's stationary in the road, waiting with his signal on. He's looking clearly to turn to his right, i.e. to your left, into a minor road, and you might be considering whether to slow down and allow him to make that turn. So what factors really are going to influence your decision? Well, first of all, how early have you noticed that situation developing? And this is really going to be dependent on your observation and scanning techniques as a driver. So we should always remember that when we're driving, we don't get into sort of tunnel vision driving. We're not fixing our eyes on one point in front of us, but we should always be scanning forwards. So we're looking at the far distance, the middle distance, the near distance. We're also scanning right to left. So we're really picking up everything that's going on around us, as well obviously as making sure that we're keeping an eye on our mirrors. So ideally, if we're driving along, we should spot the fact that the vehicle is pulling out on the right hand side well before we get there. We should spot the fact that there's a vehicle waiting to turn well before we get there. Secondly, you might want to consider, is that vehicle already holding up traffic or causing some form of an obstruction? In which case, would your decision to stop and allow them to make that turn? Is that going to allow traffic to then start to flow again and ease the general traffic situation? Thirdly, you might want to consider, if I do give over priority, if I allow this person to pull out from the junction or to make that turn across in front of me, is it going to cause unnecessary problems for myself or for other drivers, particularly those who are coming up behind me? This might be dependent on the traffic flow, possibly the timing for your signalling of your intention that you're going to allow them to make that turn, and possibly also the distance of any traffic that might be following up behind you. Okay, so let's have a look at 3 potential situations, and these are not an exhaustive list of situations. I'm sure you can think of many more that might occur, but these are just 3 that are quite common. So let's say it's 5 o'clock, it's Friday afternoon, rush hour, you're on your way home, very slow moving stop-start traffic. You move 6 feet, you stop, you drive 6 feet, you stop. Okay, and you're looking ahead, you're scanning the road, and you notice there's a vehicle just emerging from a certain minor road on the right hand side. He's just started to poke himself out over the give way lines. He's just trying to sort of get himself out into the road there. Okay, now in this situation, I'm going to start thinking, okay, potentially I'm going to be looking to give way to this guy, because for me to stop and let him out, I'm going very, very slowly. I'm stop, start, stop, start. It's not going to cause me any problems. It's not particularly going to interrupt my journey if I stop for an extra 5 seconds to allow this vehicle out into the road. I'm not particularly going to cause any nuisance to other drivers, because they're all stop start as well. Okay, I might base that decision partly on how far out into the road he's managed to emerge. If he's sometimes, particularly if they've come sort of all the way out into the road and are at that point blocking any oncoming traffic, then that's going to certainly influence my decision. I'm more likely to let them continue their journey, so that would then allow the oncoming traffic to continue going through. Now let's think, similar situation, we're driving in a steady stream of traffic. This time actually traffic's flowing a little bit more smoothly. We may be doing 20, 25, possibly even 30 miles an hour. And again I look ahead and I notice there's a vehicle just trying to emerge out into the major road. So again, I'm going to look and see how far out he's come into the road, deciding whether he's already making an obstruction at all. I'd have a check of my mirrors, and I might notice maybe I've got 7, 8, 9, 10 cars all following along, so it's a reasonably busy road. So here I'd need to make a fairly prompt decision. Either yes, I'm going to either no, I'm not going to let him out, which is my right. It is after all my priority. I'm in the major road, in which case I'm just going to maintain speed, okay, and continue and keep up with the traffic. I'm still going to keep a little bit of a wary eye on him over to the right, because he might just start to push out and he might actually just go for it. So I just need to be aware that I might need to take some action if he does. But effectively I'm just going to maintain speed and through I go. Alternatively, I'm going to make that decision. Yeah, okay, I can see he wants to get out. I can see it's quite busy. If I don't let him out, he might be sat there for quite some time. So I'm going to allow him out. And it's here I need to make sure that I take that kind of nice early decision and early action. So once I've made that decision, I'm going to ease off the gas nice and early. Okay, so by doing this, I'm going to open up a little bit of space in front of me. That creates a gap, which possibly the driver emerging out on that right hand side, he might see that gap opening up, recognise that I've slowed down in order to let him go, and he can pull out into that gap. But also, because I've eased off the gas nice and early, it gives vehicles behind me plenty of time to respond to that, rather than me getting up to the junction and then suddenly deciding to brake and stop to let him out. I've just taken nice early action to avoid any potential rear end collisions. Third situation, same thing here, driving along, traffic's flowing nice and smoothly. Again, I'm looking ahead, I see that there's an oncoming vehicle just emerging out from that side road, the minor road on the right hand side. He started to pull out a little bit, he hasn't gone too far. I check my mirror, and actually I see there's a really nice big space behind me. There's a good, say, 15-20 second gap between myself and any vehicle coming up behind me. Now at this point, my decision is probably going to be, I'm just going to keep on going through, because actually once I've driven past, he should be quite capable of just emerging out directly into that nice gap behind me. So there's no point really in me stopping just to let him out and then me moving off again, okay, because it doesn't really help anybody. So, how would you signal your intentions to surrender priority in any of these given situations? Well, first of all, try to make sure that you take a nice early decision and then act upon it. Okay, try not to dither or to hesitate. Be very clear about what it is that you're going to do. First response, I would suggest, is to ease your foot off the gas, slow yourself down, maybe a little bit of light braking. By doing that, you're going to open up the space between you and any vehicle in front. And if the other driver is alert to that, they will see that you're allowing that space to open up, and then they can take the opportunity to move through the space to wherever it is they want to go. You may find that you need to stop if necessary, particularly in those very slow moving, as we mentioned earlier, that kind of stop-start traffic. You're probably just going to come to a stop anyway. But do try to make sure that you don't sort of change your mind halfway through, rather than sort of slowing down a little bit to open up the gap, and then if the car doesn't move through, then changing your mind and accelerating away again, because that causes confusion potentially for the vehicle behind you. So if you'd made that decision, if the car isn't coming out, do just come to a complete stop. And then ideally, get a bit of eye contact with the driver, have a look at him, see if you can get some communication, just make it clear that you're waiting for them to go. Now a lot of people will say, well, what do I'll just flash my headlights, don't I, or give them a bit of a wave. And I don't suppose that me doing this little video is going to stop anybody flashing their headlights or waving at people, but it does potentially cause a couple of issues. If we turn first of all to the highway code again, rule 110 says that you should only flash your headlights to let other road users know you are there, and this would particularly be if you feel that you're in danger from them. Okay. So what you need to think about is, when you flash your headlights to somebody, what message are you trying to convey? Now in your head you're probably thinking, well, I'm just saying I'm letting you go, out you come, it's your turn, whatever. If you look at it from the other driver's point of view, how are they interpreting your headlights flashing or your little bit of a wave? Okay. In their head, they may interpret it as it's safe for me to go, which is a completely different thing from I'm allowing you to go. Okay, so potentially those drivers are then going to take your word for it that yep, it's safe for them to drive out, and won't actually double check to make sure it's safe, potentially driving out into a dangerous situation. So do just be very careful. If you are going to be flashing your headlights, make sure that your intention is very, very clear, which is why I would always suggest actually just coming to a very clear and definite stop, and then you allow the other driver to make up their own mind as to whether it is actually safe for them to come out or not. Whilst we're on this point, if you do come to a stop, particularly be considerate to learners. Many is the time on driving lessons where on a lesson with a pupil, they've been looking to emerge out from a road to turn right, they've been a little bit nervous, didn't want to sort of push themselves out, or potentially they're waiting to make a right turn into a minor road on the right, and oncoming vehicles have stopped to allow them to go, and they've maybe flashed their headlights or given them a wave. And then simply because they haven't recognised the fact that the learner will take a little bit longer to get going. They might only be on maybe their third, second lesson. It takes them a little bit of time to find that biting point, to have the confidence to get to move off nice and smoothly. And the oncoming driver, the experienced driver, just gets a bit fed up and goes, oh well, if you're not going to go straight away, I'm going to drive on. Okay, just have a little bit of consideration. Yeah, learner drivers will take a little bit longer to get going, so just be nice to them. So just looking ahead, I know we've got a junction on the left. Quite often there's vehicles turning across into that, so I'm scanning the oncoming traffic. As somebody coming is indicating, but actually traffic's flowing quite freely, so there's no real need for me here to slow down and let him through. They'll get through quite happily in a moment. Okay, so looking ahead, I can see a vehicle emerging just on the right hand side. Bit of a check of my mirrors. There's a few cars up behind me. Traffic itself in front is slowing down, so actually I'm just going to ease off that gas, open up a bit of space. I can see that after this oncoming track there's a nice big gap there, so I'm just going to allow him. It's showing him that I'm letting him go. There he goes, and then we just gently accelerate. Okay, so the next situation where we might want to think about giving up priority is those meeting situations where we're meeting oncoming traffic where there is limited space within the road. So on a basic level where we're looking at possibly a single obstruction, usually a parked car, but it might be roadworks or a chicane in the road or any other particular obstruction. The general rule is if the obstruction is on your side of the road and you don't feel that there is enough space for both cars, i.e. you and the oncoming car, to fit through the available space, then you would need to give priority to the oncoming traffic. So make sure that you hold back where you've got plenty of space to be able to negotiate around the obstruction, but also where you've got some good clear visibility of the road ahead. Similarly, if the obstruction is on the other side of the road, you would expect that you would get priority and any oncoming traffic would hold back and wait until you've gone through before they proceed. However, what is becoming much more common these days, given the explosion in the number of vehicles on the road, is situations where there is not just a single obstruction on one side of the road, but you've got vehicles parked on both sides. So you've got this line of parked cars both sides of the road, and you simply have a single channel heading down the centre of the road for traffic travelling in both directions. And clearly at this point nobody really has priority, because traffic in either direction is to one degree or another going to be on the wrong side of the road. Now, as a general rule, what I tend to suggest is if you have already moved into that central channel and you have effectively claimed the space, then you would to a certain extent expect that any oncoming traffic would then see you and be prepared to hold back and give way to you. However, as we said, because there is no priority system, you cannot guarantee that, and you certainly can't claim to be in the right. So do always be prepared to give way, particularly if it's going to help overall traffic flow. Don't be pig-headed about it and go, well, I'm in the space now, you're going to have to stop and wait for me. Okay? There are many, many drivers who will drive like that. Yeah, who think, well, I'm not getting out of anybody's way, and they will literally drive straight at you and then for some reason expect you to reverse back. Okay? Don't be like that. Alright? So when you are in these situations, be aware of the potential dangers for oncoming traffic. So make sure, firstly, that you're thinking about your speed. Okay, always remember, make sure you can stop within the distance that you can see to be clear. Think about visibility. How far ahead can I see? Okay, what if something is going to be coming the other way? Keep looking out for potential passing spaces, gaps in those parked cars on the left hand side where you could be able to pull in, but also gaps on the right where if there is an oncoming car, maybe they could pull in on the right hand side for you. But also remember to look out for clues for any oncoming traffic. So particularly during the summer or on sunny days, look out for reflections on parked cars or on windows of houses or shops. In those winter days or when the evenings start to get a bit darker, look out for reflections of lights that would give you a clue as to oncoming traffic. But also look at the vehicles in front of you. If you see their brake lights come on, that might suggest that they've seen something up ahead that they are deciding to slow down for, so you might want to take some action as well. And on a final note here, please just avoid following the car in front of you. There's so many drivers who just go, well, if that car's gone through, I'm just going to drive up right behind them, without really being able to see what's coming in the opposite direction. Okay? And then you find that the car in front of you stops to allow oncoming traffic through, and you're kind of sat there in the middle of the road, completely blocking it off. So always just hold back a little bit. If you can't see the road in front of you, just hold back, create a bit of space, make sure that you can see whether it's actually clear for you to go through, instead of just following on just because the chap in front went through. Okay, so here's one of those kind of familiar situations where it used to be narrow roads. At the moment, only vehicles on one side, but we've got oncoming traffic. I'm just going to slow down, because actually in general it's just better to let oncoming traffic or uphill facing traffic keep going, because it's much easier for us to stop and move off again if we're heading downhill than it is for traffic that's travelling uphill, if you think about doing a hill start. Just got a vehicle emerging on the left, that's the road we're turning into. Now he started to come across, pretty poor positioning by him, so we'll just wait, let him get out, gets him out of the way, and we're just keeping nice and slow as we turn in. And so as we come down here, we can see we've got that central channel, vehicles either side. The speed limit is now 20 miles an hour, so that just forces us to keep our speed down anyway. So we're just driving at a steady, what are we doing, 15, 16 miles an hour, looking ahead, scanning left and right, looking out for those potential spaces on the left, should I need to pull in and hold back. But also looking out for possibly any clues, should there be any oncoming traffic, being ready to react and respond nice and promptly. There's a vehicle on the right, he's going to wait for us. I'm looking all the way down to the end there at that oncoming traffic. So straight away, I'm just going to ease off the gas, and I'm looking for that nice space, and I can see room just here on the left. So I'm just going to slow right down and hold back here, where there's nice, plenty of space. That just allows them to come through. I'm going to signal right so traffic behind knows what I'm planning on doing. Bit of a wave and a smile. We might as well just, seeing as we're already stationary, there's no point wait for letting these guys, making them stop. They might as well all come through, and it's nice and clear. Traffic's flowing again. Again, we're just scanning that road, far distance right down to the end, middle, near distance, left and right, looking ahead for that van. Straight away, just coming off the gas, slowing it down a little bit, looking for that passing area, and here it is. So we're just going to drop it down into first, give him time to get into the space, through we go, a bit of a wave as he goes past. End of the road, we're going to turn on right. Pretty poor visibility, so looking right and left, particularly as we turn right, we can see we're entering another of those central channels. So looking ahead, and there's already somebody coming out, so if we wait here, and that will allow them, no, I think they're reversing back into the space. Okay. So as we go past, we're scanning the road ahead, we're just ready to give them a nice bit of a wave, say thank you very much, and off we go. Still scanning all the time. Going to be taking the next turning on the right, so mirrors and signal. We're in second gear already. Keeping an eye on this chap, we'll just let him go. Again, it's quite narrow street, so just let him go, gets him out of the way, gets him on his journey. Looking ahead, we've got oncoming traffic, so we'll just wait back here. See what he's up to. He's going to turn. What about the one behind him? He's turning, so just being ready to move off. So he's turning as well, so check it's safe, and through we go. Taking the next right, so mirrors and signal. As we start to turn in, it's already looking up into that minor road. We can see there's a silver car coming, So there's no point accelerating, just hold back, give him a wave, and drop it into first. And we'll take the next road on the left. Again, keeping it slow as we turn in, poor visibility, so we want time to be able to look ahead. There's oncoming traffic, so we're going to stop, hold back here into first, signalling right so traffic coming up behind knows what we're planning. Give them a wave and a smile. Give this lady a wave and a smile. Check it's safe. And through we go, keeping an eye on the cyclist now. Okay, so again, no real need for speed, just keeping it nice and slow. Just come off the gas completely here, just to give that cyclist time to come through. And then we're off. Okay, so the third situation that we mentioned was where we've got pedestrians crossing the roads at junctions or possibly through at islands in the middle of the road, as opposed to where they might be using a designated pedestrian crossing. One of the main problems here really, I think, is that there's a lack of clear decision making sometimes by the driver, which leads to a certain amount of uncertainty in the mind of the pedestrian. So for instance, the driver sees maybe there's a pedestrian, he's walked halfway across the road and he's just got to the island in the middle of the road, and the driver can't quite make up his mind whether he's going to stop to let him go, or whether he's just going to slow down a bit, or whether he's not going to let him go. The pedestrian maybe sees that driver starts to slow down a bit. Not quite sure, is he going to let me go, is he stopping, is he going to let me go? So he starts to step out into the road, then changes his mind. All leads to a bit of confusion. Vehicles behind don't know what's going on because the car in front started to slow down, but he's not really sure whether he's going to stop for the pedestrian or not. So it just all becomes a little bit of a mess. So similar to the situation at junctions, really, have a look at the situation ahead of you. Again, make sure that your scanning techniques mean you pick up that pedestrian nice and early. Okay, assess the situation, make a decision, and act on it. If you decide, that the pedestrian, he's maybe crossed over to the island in the middle, and you go, right, you can see him. Okay, I'm expecting him to wait there. I think he should wait there. Hopefully he's not going to be suicidal. He's not going to sort of walk out right in front of you. So I'm not going to stop for him. Just maintain a steady level of speed. You don't necessarily need to accelerate, but just maintain a nice steady level of speed. Be alert to the fact that he may still walk in front of you, and be ready to stop if necessary, but just make it clear that you're not actually intending to let him go deliberately. Okay? Or if you make that decision that yes, I am going to let him cross the road, great. As we said earlier, ease off that gas, open up some space, allow the pedestrian to see the fact that you are opening up some space to let them cross, and be prepared to stop if you need to. If you're getting closer to the point where the pedestrian is and he still hasn't finished crossing, be prepared just to come to a complete stop. Okay. However, do be aware that pedestrians will sometimes just walk out into the road regardless. So just always be suspicious, in a way, of pedestrians. And while we're thinking about it, a little note to pedestrians: you too have a responsibility to cross the road safely. A little thing used to be called the Green Cross Code, seems to have gone out of fashion these days, but stop, look and listen. Make sure that it is safe for you to walk across the road. There is a rapidly growing trend of pedestrians these days, unfortunately, who have their headphones on or their earbuds. They're cut off from the world, they're staring at their phone, and they simply just wander about crossing the roads without really taking effective observation, without really looking first. And to a certain extent almost expecting that they should be allowed just to walk straight across the road and any traffic should just stop for them. Okay, so there are responsibilities on both sides. Okay, so as a driver, look out for the pedestrians who are potentially not paying full attention to what they're doing, and as a pedestrian, please do pay attention. So just coming down here, got a junction on the right hand side, just looking out for traffic that might be emerging. We're okay, fine. Now, just keeping an eye on this pedestrian on the left hand side. I'm not going to let her cross, so I'm just maintaining steady speed. Nice clear decision. As I approach the towers here, quite often this is a popular place, quite often find pedestrians sort of crossing over, there's a couple there, so I'm just keeping a bit of an eye on them. The vehicle on the right is waiting, so I'm just going to maintain speed. They've got time to cross anyway. There we go. Up to the junction, just an alert for pedestrians, a lady with a blue bag here who looks like she might be crossing, so I'm going to slow it down, make it clear that I'm giving them time to cross, and then I stop. There is a signal for the roundabout for the junction, and then I'm up. Nice clear decision there. Make sure pedestrians know what you're doing. So finally we come to the notion of saying thank you to people. Showing your gratitude if you happen to be the person who has been let out at a junction, or if somebody has held back to let you through. But firstly I would say, always say thank you, even if it was your priority anyway. Doesn't really matter, okay? But just get into the habit of saying thank you. It's nice and easy, doesn't cost you anything, it makes the roads generally a much nicer place to be, and the more that you do it, the more it's going to encourage other people to do it too. Now, if you are one of those drivers who imagines that they are king or even queen of the road, possibly because you're driving a certain make or type of car, maybe you should contact a local driving instructor to reacquaint yourself with the concept of sharing the road. So how are we going to say thank you? It's really nice and easy, doesn't take much. If you're saying thank you to oncoming traffic, yep, just a little raise of the hand, give them a nice smile. If you're thanking following traffic, again, just a little wave into that rear windscreen will do, or a bit of a wave out of the window if your window happens to be open. Now, a lot of people will see these days are quickly just putting on their hazards for a couple of blinks there, and that's become a little bit of a custom now to say thank you to people. There's no real reason why, and there's no particular need for it. It's just as easy to give a quick wave and then put your hand back on the steering wheel. So I generally don't recommend using your hazards. Partly also because your hazards should only be used to indicate that you're causing a temporary obstruction, or possibly to indicate that you are slowing down rapidly, quite often on dual carriageways or motorways. But they shouldn't really be used to say thank you. It's just as easy to give a little bit of a wave of the hand. Okay. So that has covered everything. Hopefully you've found this useful. So go out and be nice on the roads. Thanks for watching.